Welcome to the Wellness Revolution podcast, the radio show all about wellness in your mind, body, spirit, personal growth, sex, and relationships. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have achieved physical, mental, and spiritual health in their lives. If you'd like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit drveronica.com for instant access. And here is your host, Dr. Veronica.
Another episode of the Wellness Revolution. I thank you for tuning in again, and we're going to have a really interesting discussion today. Ask all those curious questions. I have with me Seth Rainess, and Seth has transitioned from one sex to the other. And so you're sitting looking at a man who started out life in the body of a woman. And so we're going to talk about those transgender issues, but what I really want to talk about today is being the authentic you. So many people walk in the world feeling fake, and there's nobody better to talk about feeling fake than someone who feels like they're in a body that doesn't reflect who they are. And so I bring to you, I had Seth on my radio show. It was great. I asked all those curious questions that you ask people like this. How did you do it? What was this like? What's the surgery? What about going to the bathroom? When did you know? All this other type of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that again. Seth is an advocate, an international speaker on this issue, because there's not many people who necessarily even want to speak out about this issue. They've always wanted to just kind of blend in, and it's been difficult for them to blend in. And so when they can finally blend in, they do that and stay silent. So Seth, welcome to the Wellness Revolution. Let's a little bit talk about your background. And you started out life as a woman. When did you, or a girl, or female, when did you first feel like, I'm not really a girl? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, Dr. Veronica, thanks for having me on again. I'm really happy to do this, and I'm glad we're doing it through a video. This is fantastic. So to answer your question about when I started to not feel like a girl, I don't know that that's something consciously I can say. I believe that I know when I was 4 years old, I wore my father's tie to the doctor's office. I clearly remember because I was jumping up and down the steps. Don't know why I remember that. Probably because I was acting crazy. I don't know. But I think when I was maybe, I want to say somewhere between 6 and 8, I remember my 7th birthday, waking up because my birthday's in May, and it was a nice sunny Saturday. And I woke up and for whatever reason, I said, I hope my wish comes true that today I can be a boy. And I remember that. And that just occurred to me within the past few months because, when you're as old as I am, and I'm older, I'm not a young trans guy, life takes up so much stuff in your brain. You have to parse what you're going to remember and what you don't. But what I can clearly tell you is that I would say I knew I was different. I didn't have the terms transgender. I didn't have the terms to understand what I was going through, but I just felt on the outskirts of people in groups. I didn't feel like I could totally relax and belong to any one group, even though I have friends and, everybody can do what they need to do on the street level. But when it comes time to internalizing, that's when you start to realize that you're just different. And the word different really takes on a lot of weight because that's all I could explain that I was in those days.
I can imagine. So let's say 6, 7, 8, you were already aware that you were different, already wishing you were a boy and you were living life as a girl. What happened when you were reaching puberty?
Oh, I hated that. You have no idea.
Oh my God.
I fought with my mother not to have to wear a bra. I wore t-shirts under shirts, and my mother was quite endowed. So lucky for me, I followed that pattern.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it got to the door before me, and it was horrible. I mean, my first bra had underwire. Okay, so and my mother, when she was younger, was a corseteer, so there was no way I was going to wear a Madonna bra. I stepped right up into a minimizer. So, and it was horrible for me. And what I ended up doing, and I paid for now, is I ended up wearing clothes that were bigger. I sort of wore things that could cover me. I didn't stand up straight. Like I said, I'm paying for that now because my shoulders, took the weight of being forward, and it was horrible. I mean, and the funny part about all of it, as large as I was, even as a child, people always called me sir. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can at least remember from high school into college. I don't know if I was 10 or 12 that happened, but they always call me sir. And, I tried to blend in. So I pierced my ears and I got these big hoops, and I tried to do everything, but I was so uncomfortable doing all of it. And it just, and I liked women, so I thought I was a lesbian. So I tried to live on the outskirts again of that world, because again, I didn't immerse myself in that world. I didn't feel comfortable there either. However, if you liked women, where was I going to go as a woman, right? So, so it was tough. And I can tell you the most that it affected me is mentally and not physically, because when you're perseverating in your mind that you want to be somewhere else, when you're someplace that you aren't, and I mean that mentally and or physically, it takes up a lot of space, and you're not attentive to what's going on right in the here and now, and you miss a lot.
So you said, I like girls, and you were a girl, but you didn't describe yourself as lesbian. So
No.
Talk a little bit about the difference between what it means to be a lesbian versus somebody who's transgender and all the other terms, because for those of us who are heterosexual,
Right.
seems a little bit confusing.
I'll talk to you as far as terminology, but as far as my personal life, I can't, because I never identified, So here it is. If someone is a lesbian, that's their sexual orientation. That's who they are attracted to. Okay. There's somebody that is attracted to women, or a guy that's attracted to men. It's your attraction. It's who you are attracted to. Now, can you not be attracted? Can you play the game and try and fight what's naturally inside? Of course, people can do that, but it's not a choice. It's actually the opposite. You'd have to choose not to be that to try to be heterosexual, which is just as difficult to live two lives as it is for someone, 20, 30 years ago who was gay, who tried to live the straight life and hid the gay life. So it takes up a lot of energy. As far as transgender, what that basically means simply is that you were born with one sex, because that's what they open your legs. Oh, you're a boy, you're a girl. But you don't identify with those parts. So that's your identity. And most people go, what's that? Well, because most people don't even think about their gender identity. They get up, they put their clothes on, and they go somewhere. They never get up and go, I'm a boy, I'm not a girl, or vice versa. And when you don't have that, you don't understand it, because you get a little bit of freedom in life to just go be what you want, and you express yourself by the clothes that you wear. That's gender expression. You express yourself by putting a dress, by putting on, pants or whatever. So there is a tremendous difference between gender identity and sexual orientation, and people seem to think they're the same. And they think that if you transition, your orientation is going to change. Your orientation really doesn't change. What changes is the label that society puts on you.
I see. Okay. And so just a little bit out of curiosity, because people wonder about this. It was in the news a lot about the bathroom situation.
It still is, and it's going to be bigger, I think, given
I think, similar to, listen, we're evolving, and it's going to happen, but we all are uncomfortable, because a lot of us are uncomfortable just because it's we're not even sure what to do with it. So for me, it's like, I'm not sure what to do with it. I think I described to you when we were on the show that I was in a restaurant and there was this person, and I couldn't figure out whether the person was a man or a woman. And I couldn't even figure out, I didn't want to offend a person. And if I didn't want to say she, I didn't want to say he, I mean, and it was like uncomfortable because I didn't, not because not because I was offended or anything like that, but because I realized that I don't know what to do and I don't want to offend this person.
Right,
So
I agree. I agree. Well, the easiest thing is just to ask them what their preferred pronoun is, and you'll have the answer. And I mean, to be honest with you, the sad part about all of this is that the bathrooms aren't even the issue, and the transgender people are the ones that are actually getting targeted in the bathrooms. I mean, they've been going into the bathrooms that they identify with their whole life, and now all of a sudden, someone's like, "I don't want a man in the woman's bathroom." Well, you know what? We have laws against that. Those are perverts. Transgender people aren't perverts. They're not exhibitionists. They're not, and they're not going to expose themselves. What they want to do, especially for the male to female, is just to go to the bathroom. And they're going to walk in and go to the stall, do whatever, and walk out. And, what people don't understand, and I think this is important in educating people, is that when a male to female, when they decide to go out in public dressed as a woman, it takes everything they have in the privacy of their house to try and look and identify as close as they can as a woman, so that they aren't, pointed at, or that they do blend in. So when they do walk out of their house and when they do have to use a public bathroom, they are more scared than anybody else that could possibly be in that bathroom, because they don't want trouble to come down on them. They don't want people to point them out. All they want to do is do what people do which people should be doing in a bathroom, is going to the bathroom. And they're in their own stall doing whatever they're doing. And, we have another issue if people are looking under that stall, it's silly, but I just think that people, it's education that they need, because honestly, this is blown up into something so big. And whether it's coming from the conservative side or the religious side, or people in my generation that don't have an education, because we didn't have this information in our day. I mean, maybe in a book hidden on a dusty bookshelf in the library. I think it's fear of the unknown. This has been going on for a long time, and there hasn't been one incident anywhere in the United States where anybody's been arrested for that. And how come all of a sudden that doesn't play a part in what's going on? Like, we're making a mountain out of a molehill. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, those are the facts. You're right. There hasn't been any incidents, so it's all made up in people's heads for whatever reason.
And I mean, if I were to go into the women's bathroom now, what do you think?
Well,
and actually, it's not the female to male that has the problem. It's the male to female who has gone through puberty,
and they look like a male.
Characteristics have already kicked in and made their face more harsh and more manly. And it takes $250,000 worth of surgery in some cases to soften, the facial views. I mean, not everybody is Caitlyn Jenner with a bank account behind them. And, and so they do the best they can with YouTube videos, with wigs, with maybe a couple girlfriends that can help them with makeup, so that their best guess is to be able to walk out, go to the grocery store, do whatever they have to do, and come home and not have an incident. That means to them, wow, I'm blending into society, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to stand out.
Yes. It's interesting because I got to say that if I see a woman that I think looks too good, I always suspect they're a man. I mean, because I've seen men who cross-dress and do the shows and the reviews, and they look stunning, more stunning than anybody I know who was born a woman.
Right. I mean, yes, if they're in that venue, yes, I agree.
So they don't look like men, but
right.
they look.
Open their mouth.
There's that. I don't even know what it is. That energy, that aura that makes you say that's a man. That is a man. I know that's a man, even though I'm looking at a woman, but that's a man.
Right.
What is that? What is it that does that or says that in our energy?
I'm not sure. I think it's how we're brought up, because the pink and the blue, and mommy, this is a girl, mommy, this is a boy. I can tell you when I was younger, I mean, many times I'd be in a store and the little kid would say to his mother, mommy, is that a boy or a girl? I can't even count how many times that came my way. And I'd be with some of my friends' kids, and they would get so embarrassed, and I'd say, don't worry about it, guys, I'm used to it, it's not a big deal. And they'd get offended and they get hurt because they know who I am. And even when I transitioned the other way, they get offended. My friend's son was like about 9 years old, and he goes, "Come on, we're going to go into the men's room. Let's go." He walked in with me. I mean, it was the cutest thing, you know. It's really our generation, you know, because kids get it. Kids go, "Okay, so you're a boy, you're a girl. Okay, can we go outside and play now?" You know, they don't.
It's not a big deal to them.
No, it's not. You know, it's unfortunately our generation that I would say actually has not been educated or has heard grandpa's uncle's sister tell a story that is so convoluted that that's what you grew up with. Because I mean, in my day, there was three TV stations, and they weren't on 24 hours a day. You got like, you know, a half an hour of the news at night or in the morning, and that was it. And you got what they wanted to tell you. And now it's just 24-hour news. Some of it not, I don't even know if it's news or they portray it to be news. And you don't know who to believe, and you don't know what to believe on the internet with all this stuff going on. So my job is to talk to corporations and colleges and schools and faculty and employees, you know, unconscious bias, and try and just say, hey, look, this is an additive for you. This is not something to subtract. This is going to help your bottom line, your ROI, or in colleges for kids, you know, what do you want to do with your life? You know, this is just something that you are bearing, and someone else has some other issue. We're all going to have certain things that are going to come in our character and our personality. And for the world right now, this seems to be the biggest mountain, which to me, and it's not because I'm trans, maybe because I'm older and I've lived life and I see, you know, what is and what isn't, but this is really something they're making a big deal out of virtually nothing. And it comes between religion playing a part in this, which is sad, right? It's sad that people can't just be who they are and be a great person at that.
But I mean, but share with me a little bit more, because there have been cases of transgender, usually males to females, who get in relationship with a male, and that male in the relationship finds out that this is not, or this person is not what I think they are. And it's,
right.
They're very angry and sometimes become violent.
And so I get it. Yes. And part of that is because, you know, the trans female or trans male it works either way, but it seems to be more on the trans female side. They have to disclose, you know, you have to be and I talk about this all the time about dating and safety. You have to disclose that to someone up front, you know, whether it's your first date and you never get to the first date, or it's 2 or 3 dates in, but you have to do it in a public place, not in a private place, because you owe it to the person you're dating to be honest. And you know, as much as, you know, people shouldn't have to disclose about their genitals. I mean, obviously, yes, this is a deal breaker for a transgender person, but it would be the same thing if you're dating somebody and you've been lying to them all along about, I don't know, you were a bank robber, or you failed out of college, whatever secrets that you're hiding. I mean, those aren't as likely to be found out, obviously, as quick. But the point is, truth is what has to be. And, you know, shame on the person that doesn't disclose it, because look, if someone likes you, they're going to like you for whatever. But the point is, they're going to feel deceived if you let this relationship go to the point of where it's going to be romantic. I mean, obviously, you're not hiding that for long. And again, it's a matter of safety, because I can understand why a person would be angry, you know, because you're not portraying what they think you are, especially if it's someone who's transitioned early and their voice is more feminine than some of the men who have transitioned later, and even with a tracheal shave or learning to speak a few notes higher, still can't, you know, come on with a feminine voice, because it's not only the sound of the voice, it's ending things in questions. Your voice ends higher and it doesn't end lower. There's certain
speech patterns. Yes.
You know,
there's speech patterns that are more female and ones that are more male.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So that gets more into the being the authentic you.
Right.
So many people, not just people, transgender, I mean, this is just a big example,
right.
But what would it take for you to have the courage to actually say, here's who I am, this is what I am, and embrace it? Because so many people do not embrace it. I mean, think about it. Think about the number of men, and it's high, who are homosexual, who marry women. And then they get mad at the women, okay, and the society when they couldn't embrace it. And there's another person in that relationship who suffers because of the deceit. And some of those people who've even been put in danger. I mean, I know people who've gotten HIV and all these other things because, you know, I have a person I remember was a friend that we were, you know, our kids played together, and it turned out her husband was homosexual and was doing all this stuff and was HIV. And it wasn't just about, you know, your life falls apart because you love this person and you feel deceived, but that they're living this undercover life and you feel like everything you know is a lie.
Well, because it is, but you know, there's all different types of relationships. I mean, first off, you know, for people who are trans, especially if they're older, they just didn't come out back then. I mean, now in the last couple of years, they felt safe to do that, and they come out. And so maybe they thought, I could get married, maybe I could have this life, but you know, and they sucked it down for so long. And then finally, I mean, at least for the people that I have been in contact with, they sometimes bring their wives to the support groups to understand. Some stay together, some don't. You know, as far as being gay, well, it also depends on your culture, your ethnicity, because there's a lot of people who, in their culture, it's like, oh no, you just can't be gay. And they fight it, and they fight it, and they fight it, and they get married, and they just can't do it. I mean, there's so many reasons why someone would get married or stay in a relationship or can't do it anymore. It's not just one thing. And I don't think for some of these people, it's a matter of they could be scared. It may not be the right time. They think they could get married and overcome the urges or the feelings that they're actually fighting. And that's what I said earlier. If you're gay and you're trying to live a straight life, sooner or later it's going to come out because you're fighting against what seems natural to you. And yeah, there's wives or husbands involved or kids involved. But you know what? The best thing is, it's easier said than done, is you just have to be truthful and truthful to yourself. Just like you said, your authentic you. And that's what people are starting to do in my age group if they haven't lived that authentic life. Today, I think kids are out there. Everybody knows everything about everybody. And it's no big deal to, you know, to blab on Facebook that you're gay, you know, and you're 15 and you're 18.
That's right.
It's not, you know, they should learn to hold a little back, but they don't. And so,
but although they're not holding back, they're able to get immediately a community of support versus back when you were doing this. There was no way. How would you get support? I mean, you're saying I'm 6, 7, 8. Think about it. You're a teenager now. You're 12. You're on this. You see all this all over the place because of what we have with social media. And then not only, and then you have support of, I can do this because even if my family rejects me, there is another community. Nobody wants their family to reject them. Everybody wants to be loved for who they are. But the reality is a lot of family, friends, or whatever are not necessarily going to be comfortable with it for whatever reason. And that's their stuff. But the person going through it feels like I'm going to be alone all of a sudden. Well,
it's hard when you're under 18 because remember, you know, you can jeopardize yourself because maybe your parents will kick you out of the house. I mean, look, the transgender community, 42% of trans people are homeless. The kids, 42%. Okay, and the idea is, and even like for suicide rates, it's even greater because kids get to see what they can have. You know, in our day, we figured we're alone, we're isolated. Who were we talking to? You certainly weren't going to tell your parents. And then beyond that, where were you going with it? You weren't talking to anybody at school. And you certainly couldn't go to a therapist when you're 15 because what were you going to tell your parents? You know, and then back in those days, if you went to a therapist, you were mentally ill. You know, the idea of therapy back when I grew up was you were mentally ill.
Yeah, you were real certified crazy.
Right, exactly. And before 1973, homosexuality was in the DSM. It was a mental illness. So, you know, there's all different things that have come to be. You know, despite what may be in the environment and our situation today, it's much better than it was, you know, 30 or 40 years ago. And there's going to be there's a lot of, big corporations and foundations that are going to fight, and they're locked and loaded for whatever possibly could be coming down the pike or not.
So what do you say to families? Because it's difficult for families. They have their own hopes and dreams and everything like that wrapped up into it. And then they get this put in their life, and it's challenging. It's challenging for them. So not necessarily, there's people who are, suffering from religious dogma.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't say it that way. And
well, but I understand.
You're going to go to hell. Oh my God, my child is going to hell because this is, and so it's not, whereas you can say, oh my gosh, I'm going to get mad at this person for feeling this way. I'm going to get mad at mom and dad. Mom and dad have been taught to think a certain way, and they're upset because they're concerned about the life of their child. And not even just the life of their child. People who are real religious are concerned about the eternal soul of their child because that's the way they've been taught. So how do you help people like that when they have a way of thinking, they believe that way of life works for them, and then boom, they're thrown in, their child happens to be homosexual, transgender, something that they never even could have imagined, and there's no script for that in the Bible or any of these religious texts. There's just no script for what if you have a child like this.
Right. Well, that's a locked and loaded question coming from you, because there's so many different ways to answer that. I mean, if someone is truly like a religious zealot and, their life is ruled by every single thing out of the Bible, it's going to be hard. It's really going to be hard. And we don't get to talk to as many of those people as I'd like to. We'll have people come to the support group, and maybe it'll be 6-8 months later, maybe a mother or father come, which great. We're happy, because once they talk to other parents and they see it isn't as daunting as they feel it is in their own little world, because they've stepped out into a safe, supportive world, a lot of people in time come on board. Does everybody come on board? No. And the only thing that I can say to people who hold fast to those beliefs is, you have a child. Okay. Everybody wants their child to grow up and be happy and, and enjoy life. And the problem is, if you don't support that child and you keep sending either direct or subliminal messages that they're evil or that Satan's going to, have them burn in hell, well, and the child sees what they can have on the internet, guess what their resort is? They take their life. So it really comes down to, do you want a happy child or a dead one? Seriously, there is no in between. Because we live in a world where kids can see that everybody's happy, that they aren't like a freak, or they aren't like what their parents are trying to portray, taking them to church every week because some pastor or minister is standing up there preaching hate, and that's what they're doing. And a lot of times the parents will get it and they'll go, you know what? This is my kid. I love my kid. I've seen it happen in the Mormon, church, where they've come around and said, my kid can't be evil at 14. There's just something's just not right. Yeah. And they eventually get onto it, and they're helping other Mormons who are in the same position, because to think that you have a church that doesn't have a gay person or a transgender person in your parish is kind of crazy. They're there. They just aren't going to go, here I am.
Yes, it's interesting that you would mention Mormon, because I have a friend who was a Mormon, and she decided, and her husband decided it wasn't right for them, and left, and pretty much their family stopped talking to them. So, and this had nothing to do with their sexuality at all.
Yeah, right. I mean,
it happens. Put out on their own with no family, and had to script a new life. So,
right, it happens. I mean, there's a great documentary. I think it's called Families Are Forever. It's by Caitlin Ryan, and it portrays a 14-year-old gay Mormon kid and what the family went through, and they got kicked out of the church, but they went to another church, and now they have like a halfway house for all the Mormon kids that get kicked out. They have a support house. These kids come and live there. I mean, you'd like to believe, and we'd all like to believe, that this is your child, and before your child was born, all you wanted was 10 fingers and 10 toes, and you wanted to make sure that the child was happy. And you had these dreams of, the white picket fence or whatever you dream. Well, you can still have that. It just switched a little bit, it just switches. At the end of the day, it's your child. And really, I mean, why aren't you going to support your child? That's the question you need to ask. You know, what's up with people that can't support their child? I mean, if you found out your child, well, I don't know how much they have it today, but if you found out your child had polio, or your child, you know, got paralyzed in one leg and has to be in a wheelchair, are you going to roll the wheelchair into the street? I mean, you know, you support that child. You don't let them become a victim. And the support mat, the thicker it is in your family, the more success your child's going to have outside your front door.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we could change everybody's perception. That's what I'm trying to do, is shift perspectives and just say, look, okay, I get that this may not be the way you were brought up, but this is what it is, and it is your child, and you can't throw them back in the sea and go get a fish out another one. I suppose you could, but, you know, seriously, there's no book. You know, when you have a kid, everybody's trying to write books on how to raise them, but, you know, it's your kid. You love your kid with all the good and bad points, just as you would expect your kid to love you with all your good and bad points. I mean, and in time, I'm just hoping that people will come to their senses and just see, okay, so the outside wrapper's changed. So what? The internal piece is still the same. It's still the same kid with the good heart and the morals and whatever you have instilled in them, raising them. I wish I could change everybody, but I do my best. And at the end of the day, when I'm done speaking, I basically say, look, now you have the truth. It's up to you what you do with it. And I hope that you'll become an ally. And then when you hear someone saying something hateful across anywhere, you'll stand up and say, you know, this is not how it goes. This is not the truth, and this is how it is. And just a kind word here and there, because we need kindness in this world. And we seem to be short on that these days.
Yes. I think we're at a time where people are going to have to start standing up and standing for other human beings. You know, there's those people who are phobic of anything that's not like them. There's those people out there.
Well, it's always fear of the unknown.
Listen, we gotta start embracing each other more for another human being and realizing that we're connected. And so the right answer is, you know, loving everybody. There's no reason to hate anybody, even people, you know, you have to work on putting love towards people, even those people who you find, you know, who are doing bad things. It's just like, you know, we got a president right now. Let's, you know, to put it mildly, many are not so crazy about the president right now, but it's just like, you know what, you need to send love. You need to send love. You need to send love, because that's the only thing that's ever been shown to transform. So this is the same kind of situation.
That's exactly right. I mean, honestly.
Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Do you see me? I'm here. We have to celebrate differences, because that's what makes everything creative and unique and makes this world go forward. And I'd say that to kids as far as Steve Jobs is concerned, and Gates. I mean, they were all picked on in their time, but look where they, you know, rose to and what they became. So that's what we have to do. We have to look beyond the outer wrapper and get the core being and the kindness of what's inside the heart. And that's what people are about. And it's humanity.
Yeah. Well, Seth, keep doing what you're doing. Thanks so much for talking to me again. Always interesting. Keep educating the public. There needs to be more people. I think, you know, of course, I think education is the key. I feel that every American, before they graduate from high school, should be forced to do certain things. Like I said, listen, everybody needs a passport. Everybody needs to travel and just see all kinds of, because then you start realizing that people are people. Everybody wants the same thing: food, shelter, and happiness. So people are people, no matter where they come from. So
thank you for having me on. And anytime you need me to talk on any issues, just give me a shout. I'll be here.
And tell us, what is your website?
They can go to sjspeaks.com. And
sjspeaks.com. Got it.
sjspeaks.com, right. And if you're interested, they can take a look at the book I wrote that'll help them. If they know any kid or anybody that deals with transgender kids, it's the book from it's A to Z on transitioning, but it really talks about life. what kids, what they have to do to get through school. They have to deal with bullying. What are you going to do with your future? It's a whole book wrapped up in one, basically written for the kid that has no support. And luckily for me, I'm happy that counselors and professionals have been reading this book and giving it to kids who maybe couldn't afford to buy it, but that has helped the parents and the kids as well. So take a look at that.
I want to welcome everybody. Look in the show notes. We usually have links to books there for the authors that I interview. So look in the show notes and you should find where the link is to the book. So Seth, thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your night.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more on how to bring wellness into your life, visit drveronica.com. See you all next week. Take care.